A truly sad, haunting, and tragic series of events in our nation's history that are honestly tough to relive and reflect on. I'm John Renton with the Retro Review WWE Smackdown for September 13, 2001. The post 9/11 Smackdown taking place in Houston, Texas. Before I dive into that, I want to ask you guys, you don't have to give too many details, but I want to know where you guys were when the September 11th attacks happened. Like, again, not too many details, but if you're willing to share in the comments, I want to hear from you guys. And I can tell you, it's a day that I will never forget. Now, some of it is in a bit of a fog, probably because my brain has just blocked out so much of it because it was so goddamn tragic and so much shit to take in. And it's fucking saddening, angering, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And it's difficult to come up with some of the words, but even some, almost 20 years later, as of this recording, it's just so difficult to come up with the words and just the feelings of just sadness and so many emotions that, were just rolled into my body and so many others as they witnessed these tragic attacks that kept fucking happening. These goddamn attacks, these terrible fucking attacks, so many lives lost. I was getting ready for work, and then I saw that my parents were watching the news, and I thought it was some doctored footage or whatever, and then I realized quickly this wasn't any doctored footage. This was very much fucking real. And I'm watching all this stuff, and I didn't really know how to react. My body locked up, as did many people, I imagine. Now, at that time, there really wasn't nearly as much social media. There was internet, but it obviously isn't what it would become. And just hearing all this information, just, hearing the amount of people, the body count and everything, and all the stuff that happened, everybody was just wondering why, how did this happen, what happened, like who, what was that? People were calling their loved ones. I actually had a couple family members that were back east that were traveling, and one that lived here and one that lived a few states south of, New York. That's all the details I'm going to give right there. That family member got home safe. The other one had to actually drive cross country, and I'm just glad they're okay. And I feel so bad for everybody else that lost loved ones, family members, friends, everything. It's such a haunting goddamn time. I just, again, can't really put it into words. And I remember actually going to work. My job at the time, I worked at a movie theater in town, and we were even thinking, should we even be open? Like, we didn't know how to react, like, as far as in our history, like, as far as in my life, because I was 20 years old when this happened. I was like, I didn't know how to react, and nobody else really did either. And anybody, and again, a lot of it's in a fog, but I do remember people that did come in. It was like we were basically just like going through the motions. We were practically not there. We were shells because our minds were elsewhere. They were, our minds, our thoughts, and, everything was just with everybody that were affected by all these, attacks. And that's really, that's all the details I'm going to give right there. But it's just, even some 20 years later, almost 20 years later, I'm just still, a lot of this floods back, and that's what this episode did bring out. Now, I will say that there were some good parts of this show. There's one particular part I'm going to rant about. And if you guys know, you fucking know. And it is going to end up being a fairly scathing rant. But it did start off, with loud USA chants. There was a pretty damn big crowd there. They did limit the pyro. They didn't have any of the booms and everything, which is probably smart given the stuff that happened. But Vince is in the ring and says, "Tonight the spirit of America lives in Houston. We'd like to extend our condolences to the victims and the families and friends of the victims of these terrorist attacks that occurred on Tuesday in New York City and Washington, D.C. And then our nation's leaders have encouraged us to continue to live our lives like we used to continue to live our lives the American way." And I will say that I give Vince a whole lot of shit, but I will say that as far as a rah-rah speech or an inspiring speech, this was something that was sorely needed, because this took place 2 days after those attacks. There was a lot of uncertainty whether they should run the goddamn show. I'm sure the city of Houston was not too sure if they should run the show and have this public gathering because of security concerns, but they realized we need to do something like this. Vince says this is the first public assembly of its size since the tragedy of Tuesday. This public assembly is sending the message: we will not live our lives in fear. The citizens of citizens of Houston, sorry, not Houstons as in plural. There might be 2 Houstons. I don't know. There could be 50 Houstons. There could be a Houston on the moon. I'm going to try to make some jokes in here, guys, but this is going to be more of a somber review. It's like, but the citizens of Texas are indeed not afraid, and by God, the citizens of the United States are not afraid. We are proud to be Americans. We will fight, for our rights and our freedoms and everything, and our nation is united, and we will rise and everything. We will not be held down. And he thanks the fans, and then we go right to the Beautiful People intro from Marilyn Manson, which was a bit weird, but, they had to do the intro stuff. And then the entire roster, refs, concession people, I assume people, that just, set up the stage. Every bit of crew was out there as Lillian Garcia, and I'm going to try to not get too emotional here, but Lillian Garcia comes from a military background as far as her family, and her husband, I believe, was in the military. Maybe he still is. I'm not totally sure. Some 20 years later. But she hell of a goddamn voice. Great presence. She did the national anthem, and good God, like, if you don't get goosebumps in some form or another, I have no idea how she got through that. I genuinely have no clue how she got through that. She was breaking up. Other people were breaking up, like, during the thing, as expected, because this was an emotional moment, and Lillian created that big moment right there. Got through that song. She was cracking, but she did it. By God, she did it, and it was fucking incredible. It was a great rendition. One of the most emotional renditions of the national anthem I've heard. And that was just great stuff. And then we get a bunch of sit-down, pre-tapes and stuff like that, where people are talking, like, about their feelings and everything. Edge has a sit-down about the attacks and contemplated whether they do show or not, but they need to put a smile on people's faces. And Ricky Santana was an agent for them at this time, longtime journeyman territorial wrestler, and we will not live in fear. He was pretty goddamn fired up. There were some that were somber. There were some that were pretty fired up. JR and Heyman were on commentary. They had 9 matches on this show, and the matches were there to entertain the fans, as you would expect. The Hardys with Lita took on Hurricane and Lance Storm with Ivory. Fast-paced. I did like how Lance and this was when Lance and Hurricane did the superhero pose, that kind of stuff. That was a pretty cool moment. Lance would eventually fall to the Twist of Fate and Swanton, 1, 2, 3. And then Terry Terry Reynolds had to sit down. She's a mother, and how this hurt, all the children, that didn't have their mothers or fathers, and just a lot of stuff. And yeah, this was that was pretty emotional. That was pretty. And then Terry's sit down bled into Rock sit down, because they just would like whitewash and do this kind of stuff. But Rock, talk about the pain, all the stuff that, all the stuff they went through, that so many people went through and everything. He doesn't really have the words, and this was just, it was another emotional thing. Jim McVale, I have no clue who he is, genuinely. I assume he's somebody in Houston. He gives some, he says his piece. And then RVD versus Spike Dudley with Molly Holly, huge RVD chant, and it was quick. Spike got in a few shots, but basically got destroyed by RVD with a chair to the head, and then a drop kick, hitting the chair to the head, and then 5-star frog splash, 1, 2, 3. Then Jericho has sit down that he'd rather be helping the relief efforts. I do want to quickly mention that actor Steve Buscemi actually did go help with the relief efforts for a while. I don't remember how long it was, but I know that, he didn't want publicity or anything, but it did get leaked out years later that he went and helped and everything, because I believe he's a former firefighter. And he did that and refused pay, that kind of stuff. He just wanted to help, and that shows the bonding of the human spirit. And that Jericho says, maybe we can learn from this and become a more peaceful nation, and be nice to each other. And, that was a nice sentiment there from Jericho. With the exception of one particular sit-down pre-tape, I'm keeping any and all, pretenses or any and all feelings currently about these wrestlers to a minimum. Because there's only one particular, sit-down pre-tape that did not age well and was completely fucking ignorant. But Jericho was well-spoken. Michael Hayes talked about how, America's full of good people. The people who did this are bad people. And that he wants to see them, the people responsible, get it, as we all did, regardless of, race, color, or creed. And I want to also say, and I probably should have said this in the beginning, I'm not going to stand for any racism or any kind of stuff that's going to be fired in the comments here in regards to the comments or in regards to the attacks, because it's not about the race, color, or creed of the people. It's about what was inside, and everybody can be good or evil inside regardless of what is outside. That is why I have that shirt back there, and that is why I will continue to have that shirt back there, because we can crack jokes if we want, but we need to not be like we need to not be like that. Let's try to be better. Even as angry as I get, let's try to be better. Stasiak, then his thoughts go out to everybody. He was obviously broken up, and as expected, Lita, of course, when Lita first appeared, the crowd, yay, Lita, and then she was upset and talking about all the stuff that was going on and just her feelings on the situation. And they gave Christian his golden showers, and at last you're on your own. And then Christian says, it was literally raining goldage, which was funny for some reason. And then Jericho says, would you please shut the hell up? And talking about beating him and everything. And they had a match that was pretty quick. It was loud Y2J chants. And we get the most devastating maneuver in all professional wrestling. Surprise roll up 1, 2, 3. And then Canyon chimes in. His cousins are New York City cops. And obviously, in case you have never heard a Canyon promo, or in case you can't tell, he is from New York. He's from the East Coast. I believe he's from Jersey, but still, his cousins are New York cops. He was obviously torn up. Taz talking about he wants to be there for his family. Don't bring them to justice, bring them to their knees. And I agree. Like, that's really what should happen with anything like this, regardless of whether it's this country, whether it's in Canada, whether it's in Britain, whether it's in Antarctica. It doesn't matter. Bring people to, it's like if people are going to do stuff like this, regardless of what they are outside, is what they are inside, bring them down. That's what you got to do. And then Tori, she offers her condolences. Hurricane, he was obviously very somber as well. And then Bubba Ray, he says you can't kill America's spirit. And then Rock comes out to cut a promo. He's fired up. He offers an open challenge. Here's Stasiak, and he throws Stasiak out twice. Once, and then Stasiak's like, okay, I'll leave. And then he tries it again. And then he tries it the third time. He's like, what the hell is wrong with you? The Rock throws you out once. The Rock throws you out twice. And then you keep coming back here. What the hell is wrong with you? And he's like, let's have a discussion before this match. Let's talk about pie. And the crowd pops. And Stacy, by the way, is with Stasiak. So, he says, do you like pie? Stasiak's like, I hate pie. Well, The Rock's like, you don't like the strudel, do you? Not that I'm judging or whatever. Hey, Stacy, do you like the people's strudel? Stop thinking about it. You know who you are. I know you're thinking. Stop it. Get some help. And then they have the match where they had shaken a rock bottom in like 15 seconds. I mean, that was important, man. Stasiak just keep getting squashed here, but it was a nice pop for The Rock. And then we go to Ivory. Ivory was very broken up. She talks about how the children need to not be afraid and be judgmental because there's more good than bad in the world. And, while sometimes it doesn't seem like it, there is quite a bit of evil in the world. Guess what? There's also a lot of good. And Ivory, is very well spoken there. Bradshaw then mentions previous tragedies like the extermination of Jewish people in World War II. We're like, well, okay, that went really dark right there. And the Oklahoma City, bombing that happened and everything. And Bradshaw was very fired up and very angry and wanted to see the people brought to their knees. We then have Albert and X-Pac versus the APA. And Bradshaw getting a, home state pop. And clothesline from hell on X-Pac 1, 2, 3 after a few minutes. Match was fine. And then Kurt Angle talks about how the rescuers are the real heroes, that he is not, that they are the ones that deserve gold medals. They're the ones putting in the work. Then we get recaps of Vince's speech. Booker T took on Big Show. It was a little bit weird here at the end because Booker hit the scissors kick and Big Show popped out. And then he hit a variation of the Harlem/Houston Hangover, 1, 2, 3. And that was it. And then we get Lance Storm saying he couldn't find the right words. He didn't want to do it in case, or if he couldn't find them. And how this shouldn't happen anywhere, regardless of America or anywhere. And mentions anytime he gets on a plane, he's worried about, what his family will think and everything. But that he made hug your loved ones a little tighter, and that was very good. Lance was especially emotional here. Devon says how this hits close to home. Michael Thornton, retired Navy Lieutenant Commander, won the Congressional Medal of Honor. He offered some good wars. I believe he lived in Houston. That's why he was there. And then we get Lita versus Ivory. In a match, it was fine. The crowd popped when Lita took her shirt off. She had another tank top underneath. They weren't going to go that risque there. And she did hit a moonsault 1, 2, 3. Match was well worked for what it was. And then we get Stacy. She, being only 21 years old, so she's only a year older than me. She obviously was, this was obviously tragic for her, and she was having difficulty finding the words. And Austin, how he feels, how tough this was, how brutal it was for what everybody's going through. And then Booker, he was broken up, obviously being from Houston, but just, seeing all the stuff happening. And then Stephanie, oh, fucking Stephanie. So you want to hear me rip apart Stephanie. So let me just say right now, I could understand if these comments had to, were chalked up to youthful ignorance and stuff like that and everything, except Stephanie was old enough to fucking know better. Everybody else offered their somber moments and everything. Sure, Bradshaw went a little bit dark with his, but they were the comparisons that made sense, and he was all angry. Everybody's patriotic. USA, USA, USA. The people are the real, the rescuers and everything are the real heroes, and we feel so bad for the 3,000 plus some odd people, and the growing number and everything, and the number of people that died, number of people affected, all that shit. Stephanie, stupid fucking twat, decided to start this. She started, everybody else was all emotional and everything, and what did Stephanie do? A few years ago, some people tried to destroy my family. I remember seeing this and thinking, there's no fucking way she's going to be this goddamn stupid to do this. Oh, she fucking is. They attacked my father's reputation. They attacked my mother's reputation. And they attacked the WWF, because it was a WWF at the time. They tried to rip us apart, but all they did was make my family stronger. And that's exactly how America feels right now. Because on Tuesday, America was attacked, but America is a united nation, and together we stand strong. I'm incredibly proud to be an American, or be an American citizen. I will stand up for my rights and freedoms. So let me just say this much about this goddamn stupid twat that probably should have been slapped repeatedly. I wonder if she would have had the guts to go say that, to play that speech for the people who lost family members, who lost their lives. You know what I mean. The victims. The victims probably wouldn't have appreciated hearing that or whatever, but the victims' families in particular, hearing that, how dare this ungrateful bitch that was lucky to get a motherfucking job because her daddy happened to own the goddamn company, how dare she compare the steroid trial that honestly was pretty much bullshit and everything, even though Vince McMahon is a very shrewd businessman, always has been, always will be, but how dare she compare a steroid trial that, yes, might have sent Vince to jail, it might have, but comparing how a steroid trial affected people for a little bit, may have stressed people out, to the millions of people affected. Thousands of lives lost, millions of people affected, millions of people are still affected right now. How dare you, Stephanie? How fucking dare you, you stupid goddamn twat? How dare you compare a steroid trial to the tragedies of people who actually lost their fucking lives? I wonder if she regrets saying that. I wonder if she even cares. Maybe she's just a goddamn ignorant bitch. Always has been, always fucking will be. So, again, I would chalk this up as youthful ignorance. But there's no way that wasn't pre-planned. Like, oh yeah, let me do this and everything. No, I can't possibly just talk about the victims. I can't possibly be nice, and I can't possibly put my motherfucking ego aside. No, let me compare something that my family went to actual lives being lost. That's a great fucking idea. So she deserved to honestly face all the people who lost, who lost loved ones, in the attacks, and have to face the goddamn music and have them yell and scream at her every single goddamn person. I wonder if Stephanie's ego would have allowed her to feel even a little bit of sadness. Probably fucking not, because judging by this, she didn't fucking care one goddamn bit except about what her family went through. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure the steroid trial was very, very tough on the family, but it's nothing compared to terrorist fucking attacks that actually cost human lives. American, Canadian, whatever. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what, where they were from. U.S., the world hurt. Americans were hurt. Everybody was hurt. And she decided to suddenly just make it all about herself, because that's all Stephanie ever fucking did. She always made it about herself because she's an egotistical, dumb, stupid bitch. I wonder if her kids will grow up to be smart. I really fucking hope they do. But given the fact that they're being raised by a goddamn ignorant bitch like her, I'm not so optimistic. So hopefully her kids can look back on that and say, hey, Mom, what the fuck were you fucking thinking? God fucking damn it. Not youthful ignorance. She knew what the fuck she was doing, and it may have been, some 20-odd years, but guess what? They still hurt. They fucking angered me. I had to write this shit down. I had to pause it, and I had to take a break from watching this show before I could fucking continue to watch the rest of that. And by the way, this was later in the show. There were maybe 15, 16 minutes left of the show, and I was prepared to just not watch the goddamn thing and just talk about this fucking thing. So yeah, fuck Stephanie, and fuck the fact that she thinks that she can make this all about her. The goddamn stupid twat. She deserved to have every single person that lost somebody in those tragic, terrorist attacks. They should have been able to go up there and slap her. Especially the women. And in fact, just the women. Women that lost their husbands, that lost their children, that lost their loved ones. How dare you, Stephanie? How dare you make it about yourself? You deserve every bit of ridicule you got for this and ever since then. Words hurt, and guess what? Karma's a goddamn bitch. So guess what, Stephanie? This is going to continue to haunt. Like, Stephanie's going to fucking watch this, but I'm not going to forgive her for something like this. This was not the time to say something like this. Now, if she had said it months and months and months later, okay, it would have still been stupid. 2 days after the fucking attacks. 2 fucking days. Anyway, let's get back to the review. Stupid fucking twat. Anyway, yeah. Said all that. So now, Tessa and the Dudleys took on Sky Too Hottie, William Regal to Jerry with Tori. I mean, okay, it was what it was. It was funny, though, that Billy Gibbons of ZZ Top was there in the front row, and Heyman says, oh my God, it's the Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant. And why? I think I popped and just laughed so much because I was so angry by what Stephanie said, stupid motherfucking twat. I think I was so upset that just made me laugh. And to be fair, he actually kind of did look like Jimmy Valiant kind of looked like him. It was pretty funny. The match was fine for what it was. Devon got misted. Scotty got his worm out on Bubba. And then a big boot from Test. 1, 2, 3. And there you go. Lillian, good God, Lillian was said. Apparently, I guess her husband was supposed to be part of, it was supposed to be at a meeting in the towers and was not there, or at least a loved one. I tuned some of this out because it was just all malaise after a while. I felt so bad for Lillian. But I'm glad that her loved ones were okay. And then, Farouk, Ron Simmons says, it's hard to find the words, to describe this. And all I could think was, damn, because it was terrible, but you know what? That's exactly what I thought even the first time when I watched this. But he was saddened, as anybody would be, except Stephanie. Stupid twat. And I'm going to keep saying that. I'm going to avoid saying a certain word, except she is the third letter of the alphabet times infinity. Not just for that, but for a whole bunch of other things she said. Regal then recounts, fear he's felt seeing attacks and everything and stuff like that, and just he doesn't really, he's not able to put it into words. Albert, he was upset as well. Albert was the last person that we heard from as far as pre-tapes. We have Rhino versus Kurt Angle. Huge pop for Angle. Sweet fucking Christ. I'm going to... Reliving Unforgiven 2001 in a little bit will be interesting because it takes place in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which, if you're unfamiliar, Kurt Angle is from. USA Chance was good pace. Later, a gore from Rhino, but he took too long to make the cover. And then Angle hit the Angle Slam 1, 2, 3, and then we get Kurt Angle leading the crowd in USA Chance. Well, this was certainly tough to revisit. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.